Hello guys, today we have a 2022 American psychological supernatural horror film called Smile. The movie opens with a haunting scene. A woman lies motionless after overdosing, while her daughter, Rose, stumbles upon the heartbreaking sight. Fast forward to the present day, where Rose, now a therapist, is jolted awake by a sudden phone call. Her first client of the day is Carl, a troubled individual consumed by thoughts of death and his own mortality. Despite his frantic ramblings, Rose gently tries to calm him down, reassuring him that his fears, though intense, pose no immediate threat to him. Despite Rose's efforts, Carl remains deeply troubled. Soon after, Rose is contacted for an appointment with Laura Weaver, a young woman grappling with recent trauma. Prior to meeting Laura, a doctor provides Rose with background information, detailing an unsettling incident involving Laura witnessing her school professor's gruesome suicide by hammer. Upon meeting Laura, Rose discovers her huddled in a corner, clearly shaken. With gentle introductions, Rose tries to comfort Laura and gently probes into her experiences. Laura confides in Rose about her unique ability to see entities that others cannot, which manifest as both familiar faces and complete strangers. Rose queries Laura if she currently perceives the entity, to which Laura denies. Curious, Rose inquires about the entity's behavior when Laura does see it. Laura describes a disturbing smile devoid of warmth and mentions that it communicates ominous messages, including one about her imminent death. In an attempt to soothe Laura, Rose offers reassurance, suggesting that traumatic experiences can sometimes distort our perceptions. However, as Laura momentarily turns away from Rose and then looks back, she suddenly spirals into a state of panic and distress. As Rose glances back, she notices no one behind her. Alarmed by Laura's deteriorating state, she urgently calls for assistance. However, upon her next glance, she's horrified to witness Laura wielding a sharp shard from a broken vase, her expression twisted into a chilling grin. In a harrowing act, Laura begins to inflict fatal wounds upon herself, leaving Rose paralyzed with shock until help finally arrives. Subsequently, Rose recounts the traumatic event to two detectives, including her ex, Joel. She explains Laura's descent into paranoid delusions, convinced of a malevolent presence haunting her. Before her tragic demise, Laura wore an unsettling smile, adding to the eerie circumstances. Later, Rose returns to her home shared with her fiancé Trevor and their cat Mustache. Nightfall brings no relief from the day's horrors, as Rose is plagued by disturbing visions of Laura, her smile haunting her even within the sanctuary of her own home. As Rose sat, lost in thought, her gaze fixed on the horizon, Trevor's sudden presence startles her, and he inquires about her distress. She reveals that one of her patients passed away earlier that day. The following evening, Rose and Trevor join her sister Holly and her husband Greg for dinner. Holly reprimands Rose for forgetting her son Jackson's upcoming birthday, but Rose, still haunted by the day's events, responds sharply. Attempting to move forward, Rose returns to work the next day. She heads to the reception to request the police report on another incident involving Laura. While reading the report, she receives a call from Holly, and they reconcile after their earlier argument. Lost in her thoughts as she stares out the window, Rose believes she spots someone who resembles Laura in the distance. Holly urges Rose to at least get a birthday gift for Jackson. Later, as Rose passes Carl's room, she notices him wearing a disturbing smile reminiscent of Laura's. When she tries to engage him in conversation, Carl repeatedly warns her, uttering, "You're going to die." Distraught, Rose calls for assistance, but Carl is found asleep, baffling the orderlies. Concerned for her mental state, Rose's supervisor, Dr. Morgan Desai, grants her a paid week off. On her way home, Rose stops by a shop to purchase a gift for Jackson. That night, as she settles in at home, the blaring of the security alarm startles her. Upon investigation, she discovers the back door of her house wide open. The phone rings, and a lady claiming to be from the security service asks unsettling questions, revealing herself as a malicious entity taunting Rose. She instructs Rose to look back, and the phone rings again, startling her further. Later, while listening to Laura's recording, Rose detects a strange voice. Increasing the volume, she hears her name, feeling Laura's presence haunting her, inducing terror. Trevor rushes in upon hearing her screams, shocked to find Rose holding a knife, urging her to put it down. The following day, seeking solace, Rose turns to her therapist, Dr. Madeline, sharing her distressing experiences. Madeline suggests that Rose's feelings of being trapped may originate from her mother's suicide. Madeline inquires if Rose still holds herself accountable for her mother's suicide. Rose admits that since Laura's incident, she has been experiencing hallucinations, particularly of Laura. Madeline explains that these manifestations are likely linked to the trauma of Laura's incident, reigniting past anxieties. Over the weekend, Rose attends Jackson's birthday celebration. When Jackson unwraps her gift, anticipating a toy train, he discovers Mustache's lifeless body instead. Rose is horrified and tries to assure everyone she's innocent, But amidst the commotion, she notices one of the other mothers sporting the entity's sinister grin, unseen by others. Startled, Rose staggers backward, tumbling through a glass table, necessitating her hospitalization for medical attention. Morgan pays Rose a visit upon learning of her recent episode and suggests that she take some time off from work. When Trevor brings her home, Rose attempts to articulate her belief that an evil presence is threatening her, responsible for harming her patient and now targeting her. However, Trevor dismisses her concerns, convinced she's unraveling mentally, and accuses her of being responsible for Mustache's death. Undeterred, Rose launches her own investigation, delving into information about Laura's professor, Gabriel Munoz. During her research, she hears a faint voice calling her name. Upon turning off the lights, she is shocked to see the apparition of her deceased mother standing behind her. The following day, Rose visits Gabriel's widow, Victoria, who discloses that Gabriel had experienced haunting visions before vanishing under mysterious circumstances and later being found deceased. Gabriel had described these visions as something attempting to possess him. Victoria shares sketches and a painting related to Gabriel's encounters. Victoria reveals that Gabriel's visions commenced after he witnessed a woman's suicide. When Rose mentions her own similar experiences, Victoria misinterprets her intentions and accuses Rose of belittling her tragedy, demanding she leave. Rose reluctantly sought Joel's help in her investigation and inquired about Gabriel's potential involvement in other recent police reports. Despite initial hesitation, Joel eventually agreed to assist her. While digging into the matter, he stumbled upon information regarding Angela Powell's demise, discovering that she had gruesomely gouged her own eyes out. Shocked by the revelation, Rose urged Joel to investigate further into Angela's history. Delving deeper, Joel uncovered footage revealing Angela's witnessing of a man's horrifying suicide at a gas station, where the man impaled himself before her eyes. Upon reviewing the footage, they were unsettled by the eerie smile plastered on the man's face. Upon returning home, Rose was confronted by Trevor, who had arranged for Madeline to provide a house call session due to concerns about her mental well-being. Angered by Trevor's apparent disregard for her feelings, Rose lashed out, accusing him of prioritizing appearances over her welfare, ultimately leading to their breakup. Seeking solace, Rose turned to Holly and confided in her about feeling cursed. She recounted how the curse had seemingly transferred to her from Laura, but Holly, grappling with her own emotions, likened Rose's experience to their mother's breakdown, suggesting a pattern of familial affliction. Rose vehemently retorted that she had never been there for their mother, and had shouldered the responsibility of caring for her until the very end. As she returned to her car, she caught a glimpse of what seemed to be Holly approaching, only to realize it was the haunting entity plaguing her. Later that night, Joel contacted Rose with unsettling news. He had uncovered 20 similar cases, each involving 19 suicides with a sinister connection. Among these cases was Robert, who had witnessed his business partner's suicide before committing a murder himself, perpetuating a dark cycle. Rose and Joel visited Robert in prison, where she fabricated a story about experiencing a similar incident, hoping to extract information from him. However, Robert's reaction was one of panic, accusing Rose of bringing the entity with her and prompting his restraint. Returning home, Rose ignored a call from Madeline and received a text from Trevor insisting they needed to talk. Shortly after, Madeline unexpectedly arrived at her house, urging Rose to convince her of something. In the midst of an impromptu therapy session, the phone rang, revealing Madeline's voice on the other end, much to Rose's shock. However, the entity revealed its presence, grinning sinisterly and hinting at impending events. With her options seemingly dwindling, Rose drove to her workplace with a knife in hand. Inside, she confronted Carl, whose terror intensified as she attempted to reassure him. Before she could calm him down, Morgan entered the room, witnessing Rose repeatedly stabbing Carl in a chilling turn of events. He shrieks and seems to claw at his own face, but it's merely a nightmare that Rose experienced. Morgan arrives and urges her to come inside, but she flees when he spots her, taking the knife with her. Later, she receives a call from Joel, informing him that she must isolate herself to prevent the entity's spread. Joel inquires about her whereabouts, but she abruptly ends the call. Arriving at her childhood home, where her mother passed away, she discovers the absence of electricity. Inside, she ventures into her mother's room, triggering a flashback to her childhood when her mother pleaded for help, only to be rejected by Rose, who fled. In the darkness, she hears noises and investigates, finding her mother weeping in the room. Standing up, she extends an apology to her mother, acknowledging her shortcomings as a parent. Tearfully, she questions whether her mother is ashamed of her, and why she didn't intervene to save her. In response, Rose reveals her fear of her mother, describing her as a monstrous figure. She confesses to carrying the weight of her mother's death throughout her life but realizes she must release this burden. As the entity begins to grin, Rose demands an explanation for its torment. It transforms into a tall, sinister version of her mother, always wearing a chilling smile. The entity attacks Rose, warning her that she cannot evade her own mind. However, Rose fights back, breaking its arm and setting it ablaze with a lantern before fleeing the burning house. Seeking refuge at Joel's apartment, Rose expresses remorse for involving him and acknowledges the unfairness of their relationship. She inquires if she can spend the night here and simply rest, and if he will accompany her while she sleeps. Joel assures her he'll remain by her side forever, flashing a chilling smile. Suddenly, he lunges at her, prompting her to flee the house, only to find herself back outside her mother's home. Startled, she rushes back indoors when Joel calls out to her. Inside, she faces the eerie entity once more, which gruesomely tears off its face before forcibly entering her mouth, stretching her jaw wide. Joel bursts through the door just as Rose, now possessed, douses herself with kerosene. As she turns to face him, she reveals a disturbing smile before setting herself ablaze, leaving Joel horrified as the screen fades to black, concluding the movie. Thank you for watching.